Welcome back, America. It's Friday, after all, which means that we should take a little bit of time tonight to have some fun. And in the wake of the recent backlash of gun safe manufacturer is receiving after they publicly acknowledged that they gave the FBI the access code to one of their customers' gun safes because the federal law enforcement agency demanded it, I figured why not make this conversation about our Second Amendment. You may remember our next guest as she's joined us several times before. Natasha Owens has just released her latest single and music video called The Second Protects the First. Take a listen to a brief clip of this new song that is lighting up the internet. Check it out.
I got God and I got freedom to say what I wanna say. That's the genius of our founding fathers. That's the beauty of the USA. But in these days, there are times we may find everything just goes from bad to worse. I hope to never use that little something hiding in my purse. But the second protects the first.
Joining us now is the singer and songwriter herself, Natasha. Welcome back to the show. Good to see you.
Thank you. It's so good to see y'all.
Our First and Second Amendments, it seems like, are always under attack. This is perpetual, dating back to the, pre-Revolutionary War, because those are some of the things that we fought over, especially the First Amendment. But John reported over on justthenews.com that gun sales have topped a million for 49 consecutive months. So, in my opinion, I think that America is saying we want guns, we value our Second Amendment, but the government seems to be receiving a different message. What compelled you to write this song in this moment?
This is an argument that isn't brought to the table often, and I thought people needed to be reminded that our Second Amendment, our guns, is what secures all of our freedoms. We do not have freedom without that Second Amendment. And that's why the Democrats always want to come for guns. And they always want to demonize it and say, oh, it's for the safety. And they want us to be petrified to where we beg them for a false sense of security in taking our guns. But that's not how it works. Our founding fathers and our choices and our ability to defend ourselves and our family. And we needed to be reminded of that. You've got to look at their actions and their words. Their words say they're so worried about the safety of our kids and our families, but their actions prove different. Our southern border, I'm in Texas, our southern border is completely open, and cartel members, ISIS members, terrorists, and a ton of fentanyl come over that border every single month. If they were really concerned about our safety, they would do something about that border and not come for our guns.
Natasha, there's this amazing line in there talking about the genius of our founding fathers. And today, so many children are taught our founding fathers were nothing but slave owners, and the negativity that is injected into young children about their country and its founding is so pervasive that kids come out 10 years later and they're like hating our country. That line is so powerful to me. And then the recognition, there's a reason why the First Amendment's first and the Second Amendment second. There's a lot of history teaching that goes on in this great little ditty that you've sung. How important is it for parents to reinforce positive messages about the founding of this country?
You know, it's so important because, the left has completely, like your last guest said, completely demonized. If you can erase history, you can repeat it. In history, back with China, Germany, and Russia, every time a government disarms their people, over 100 million people perish. And they don't want you to know that. They don't want you to know what happens when they take your freedom away. And so we have to be very to the table and talk, but this is a topic that you can't talk about with the liberals. They just completely shut down. We do not have a gun problem in this country. We have a mental health problem. We have a heart issue. We have a God issue, the lack of God in our country. It's so hard to regulate guns because you can make a law that makes sense. Oh, let's just make it to where domestic terrorists can't have guns. That's something we can all agree on. However, when they start talking about white nationalists, Christian nationalists, people who love our country, love God, and are patriotic, are suddenly deemed domestic terrorists, then we have a problem. So you can't trust the other side with these type. Charlie Kirk came out with a few stats not too long ago that said, if you take 10 cities in America and take their gun on gun, or their gang crime, their black on black and their Hispanic gang crime, if you take those numbers out, and if you take the numbers out from suicide, you are left in less than 200 deaths a year in America. That is not a gun problem, and I think Americans are waking up to that. That's why you're seeing an astronomical amount of gun sales over the past few years, because they know what the government's doing. They see it.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Natasha, the Second Amendment, people who are supporters of the Second Amendment, it's almost always an intellectual debate. They use facts, they use statistics and data, and it's not an emotional debate. And oftentimes liberals try to make everything emotional. You are actually a perfect example of using logic and information and data and not emotion, because you have a personal story involving your dad, and you are yet still a staunch advocate of the Second Amendment. Can you tell our audience about that?
Yeah, 13 years ago, my dad, who was the epitome of gun safety, was sitting at a table cleaning his guns, cleaning a Glock, and it's a very dangerous gun. There was a bullet in the chamber, it went off and hit him in the heart, and he was gone within 60 seconds. So people are always very fascinated at, I have a tragic death story, as well as my uncle being murdered with a gun. Why are you so pro Second Amendment? And I'm like, because it's a heart issue. When someone has killing in their blood of what they want to do, they will find something, whether it is a car, a knife. It's not the gun's fault, it's the person's fault. And my dad, he was at fault. It was an accident dealing with a dangerous gun. He wasn't careful enough. And so you can't blame the gun for that. But I know one thing, I've got 2 boys at home and plenty of dogs that I love. If someone comes into my home, I feel so much better knowing that I have a gun and able, that's the difference in me and my family losing our lives or it saving our lives. And I'm always going to be a proponent of the Second Amendment.
So well said.
I love it. You have such an incredible story. And Natasha, thank you so much for being here on the show and talking about your last album, American Patriot. And we know you're going to have some amazing projects and music coming out in the future. And we'll definitely have you back on to talk about that. All right, we got bills to pay, so we've got to air a few commercials, but we'll be back just on the other side of these messages.